So apparently, Chinese people hate the way Chinese people look. Before we get into this ridiculous topic, I'd like to teach you all a Chinese phrase. It's something I picked up very early on in China when I was dating. Now, the phrase goes, 萝卜白菜各有所爱, which translates to radish, cabbage. Everyone has their own preference. And I guess the English equivalent to this would be beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And it's a way to reply to someone who maybe insults your taste or can't understand why you like to eat a certain type of food, date a certain type of person, etc., etc. Anyway, let's get into this ridiculous topic. So, here we have a Chinese model. Modeling for a Chinese food company called Three Squirrels. And no, they don't specialize in squirrel meat. They're a snack food company who hired a fashion model named Cai NiangNiang to shoot an ad campaign for their noodles back in 2019. The problem is that all of a sudden, the Chinese internet has decided that she's not allowed to represent Chinese people. And you know why? Because her eyes are too small and slanted. So they went on a rampage, attacking both the company and the model, accusing them of uglifying the Chinese people. And, well, let me quote. Such advertisements that intentionally pander to Western aesthetics of uglifying the Chinese should be firmly rejected. The advertisement for Three Squirrels hot and sour rice noodles was a disaster, along with the model with her arrogant slit eyes and super thick lips. Rejecting Three Squirrels starts from you and me. Pretty awful stuff, but we'll get back to Cai NiangNiang in a minute. I think we need to go back a little bit first and talk about the Chinese beauty standards and the absolutely absurd idea that Chinese are only allowed to look a certain way. I, for one, believe in individuality. Variety, after all, is the spice of life. And here's a newsflash. Human beings do not all look the same. There is no single look that encompasses an entire race or nationality. Although societies may have beauty ideals, it's ignorant and insulting to shun individuality. In fact, the Chinese beauty standard seems to want to portray Chinese people like Europeans. Big eyes, white skin, and all that. I mean, art, fashion, and beauty have always been very changeable, and tastes shift from year to year, generation to generation. I mean, seriously. What your grandparents thought was fashionable and beautiful probably makes you cringe and think of dusty doilies and tea warmers. The thing is, fashion models tend to be chosen because they have an edge, a special look that stands out. Take Grace Jones or Kate Moss. They're not what I would consider to be classically beautiful or attractive, yet have a distinctive, unmistakable look which demands your attention and thus proves them to possess a rare, attractive, and beautiful quality. This is the exact sort of attention that brands seek out. In a sea of standardized, attractive models, it is the unique and exotic that stands out. The difference is, in mainland China, conformity is the name of the game. Nobody really wants to stand out, and those that do stand out are very quickly brought into line. So let's get back to our fashion model, Cai NiangNiang. Now, I've been going through some of the comments and posts about her on Weibo. Weibo is China's Twitter knockoff, and they are brutal, some of these things. Brutal, hurtful, and downright disgusting. Not only are people attacking her looks and her as a person, but people are saying that, well, maybe she's Chinese, she's not allowed to represent Chinese people, calling her a washing dog. I don't even know how to translate that properly, but a washing dog that collects money. It's something I've never come across. I'll have to look into it. But they call her a washing dog who does this, humiliates China for money. Ridiculous stuff like this. And of course, she did make a video post and try to explain the situation to everybody. And this is pretty much what she had to say. So I went through her whole video reply post that she put out to this whole thing, to all the abuse. And I'll just cut it down for you very quickly. She basically said that she feels really helpless. And just because her eyes are small, does that not qualify her as being a Chinese person? And that she, as a professional model, what she needs to do is she needs to be photographed according to what the client demands or the client's needs. So she doesn't know how this became about her humiliating the Chinese people because she was just doing a job. They chose her. They did the makeup. They made her pose in whichever way. So why is it her fault? And how is she humiliating the Chinese people? She also went on to say that she hopes that people would stop messaging her with personal attacks since she's not a supermodel or a public figure. She's someone who loves her motherland and is a law-abiding citizen. So you see how bad this is. No matter how much you love China and you love your country and how nationalist you are, when these rabid nationalists, especially these online netizens, when they decide they don't like you, they will attack you no matter what and no matter how loyal you are. It's really a really terrible dog-eat-dog kind of a situation here. Now, of course, to add insult to injury, the company released an apology to say that, oh, they're so sorry, they're taking down all the pictures, and it won't happen again. So the company's not backing her up. In fact, they're just agreeing with everyone and saying, oh, you're right, yeah, she humiliates the Chinese people, she's ugly, we're just going to take the ads down. Well, let me tell you what the company actually said in their official post, okay? They said that they did not intend to portray a Chinese person in a bad light. The advertisement was shot in 2019. The model is Chinese and the makeup style was decided to suit her natural features. In response to the feedback from netizens that the model's makeup does not conform to publicly accepted aesthetic standards and has caused discomfort, the company apologizes. The page has been replaced and arrangements have been made to check other company pages to ensure that this situation will not happen again. In other words, screw you, Cai NiangNiang. All the outrage mob are correct. You're ugly, you don't represent Chinese people, and you humiliate us. It must be said that there were also those who came to the model's defense online, but unfortunately, they were far outnumbered by the people that were attacking her. I feel incredibly bad for Cai NiangNiang, and I think it's really a disgusting and dirty side of Chinese society. This discrimination that you see. This is not the first time this has happened, and I guess we need to move on to some other examples because in the past, Western companies have really faced a lot of backlash when they've done fashion shoots. Dior, Gucci, Dolce & Gabbana. Many of these big companies have in the past used models which don't conform to Chinese beauty standards and are therefore seen as some kind of evil foreign influence, some horrible foreign power that's trying to paint Chinese people in a bad light and villainize them and make Chinese people look like Fu Manchu or something like that, And it's terrible because I guess China doesn't understand the fashion industry and how it works, at least in the rest of the world. Even Mercedes-Benz had to issue a groveling apology for their new CLS advert in China because they used a model which again was accused of having slanted eyes and making Chinese people look bad and villainizing the Chinese people and all that other nonsense. I mean, come on, guys. It's a freaking advert for a car and it's a Chinese model. Models are chosen because of their distinctive looks, not because they look like everyone else, like I said earlier. Anyway, it's kind of ridiculous because not that long ago I believe it was for Dior. They had this kind of Shanghai fashion exhibition. And a Chinese photographer took a photo, and got the makeup and everything done on a model. And she received massive backlash that she actually had to go out there and make a public apology and say that she was arrogant and ignorant and so on by taking this photo, which, if you ask me, I look at that photo, yeah, it's not the most beautiful looking picture in the world, but it's kind of what I'm used to. If you look at a fashion magazine, or if you look at any of those ridiculous runway walking things, the models are always made to look outlandish and unique and outstanding. And so for me, it seems really kind of ridiculous that you've got the photographer groveling and the Chinese photographer groveling and apologizing to the Chinese, outrage mob that, oh, I'm so sorry I took a photo you didn't like. Now, when it comes to Western companies, it's very easy for the outrage mob to blame the outside, because that's kind of a common thing in China. The outside is bad, China's good. The outside always wants to bully us and portray us in a bad light, that kind of thing. It's quite a common theme. But now this is a Chinese company using a Chinese model, and they're receiving the same thing, and they're still trying to blame it on Western stereotypes and so on. It's kind of ridiculous. You know what this whole situation demonstrates? Other than the fact that, Chinese society can be very discriminatory and very brutal towards their own people if they think they don't look a certain way. It really showcases why China's entertainment industry and China's, how can we put this, pop culture is not popular around the world. Individuality is punished rather than embraced. So who wants to watch movies, TV shows, or listen to music that has to conform to a certain standard all the time? It's boring. It never breaks away from the mold. And this is also why China has such a problem with creativity and creating anything, really. And that's why China is incredibly good at copying and conforming, but not good at innovating and creating. I just want to end this by saying I feel incredibly bad for the fashion model Cai NiangNiang. I think she's attractive. I think there's nothing wrong with the way she looks. I've seen people that look very similar to her in China. I've seen many different kinds of looks in China. The Chinese look, there is not one specific one. Having been all around the country, yeah, sure, the majority of people in China have black hair and brown eyes, and that's pretty much where it ends. You get different facial structures, you get different eye shapes, you get different everything, just like everywhere else in the world. There isn't a specific Chinese look. Unlike these intolerant Chinese citizens and netizens that attack a poor girl for doing her job, I hope all of you out there stay awesome.